quilting friends, it's Carolina Moore, your favorite sewing and quilting YouTuber, and today I'm making this fun and simple project tote using my Baby Lock Jubilant. You ready? Let's get started. Today's project is making a fun little tote from this part of the Art Gallery Fabrics panel. This will be a simple tote for throwing a couple books in or throwing a project in for on the go. I'm going to just use some webbing for handles, so I'm not sewing handles for this project, just using what I already have. And then hopefully I'll remember to add a label. That's the goal. Sometimes I forget to add the little labels or tags to my projects, so we'll see if it happens this time. Let's find out. So if you haven't seen my video on cutting up the Art Gallery Fabrics panel, you should go find that one, and it'll talk about how to subcut this all down. I've measured this and it is 15 inches by 15 inches. It's actually a little bigger than that. So now I want to cut it to that 15 by 15. So what I'm going to do is, let me get my head out of the way. I'm going to fold this in half this direction to find the middle, because you can see there's a little more on one side than the other, and that's totally normal. And then while I'm folding, I'm going to go ahead and fold the other direction as well, trying to find that middle of my panel piece so that I can cut this to size. Now we're going to cut it to 15 by 15, which means I'm cutting 7.5 out from each one of these folded lines. So I'm lining up the folded line right here, and you can fold it and then cut 7.5 out. Makes me a little nervous if something shifts. 2, 4, 6, 7.5. Hopefully I cut that right. And then I'm going to spin it around. And this time I should be able to just do 15. If I did it right, then this will be at the 7.5, and it is. And now I'll be able to cut at 15. And if I measured everything right, I'll be able to do it in the other direction as well. So let's do this again. If I put this line here on the 7.5, I should be able to just chop this at the 15. Ooh, there's almost nothing left on the bottom of this. So this is going to just barely trim off, just basically trimming it straight right there. And then the other side, this should all be square, and it should be at 15. I'm going to have a little bit of this white, but it's not the selvage, so I'm not worried about it. There we go. Oh, and I just have a tiny touch of the white right there. It's totally going to be hidden in the seam allowance. I'm not worried about it. So now I have my panel cut to a 15 by 15 square. Perfect. This is scrap. I'm going to tuck this aside for a second, and now I'm going to pick the label that I want to use. And I picked this little Me Made right here, and I'm going to use scissors to cut it out just because it'll be easier. There we go, I've cut it out. Now I'm going to fold it right sides together. And this is super imperfect here because of the way that I cut it, and it wasn't on grain, but that's okay. I'm going to put this so that the side that I see is the back of the Me Made portion. I'm going to sew our tag. I'm going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And at that fold, I want to make sure to stitch back and forth. just to make sure that I secure that fold. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Making sure to stitch back and forth with that fold. Cut off threads, and I want to make sure that my stitches are outside of that me made. They are. Now at these folds, the bottom, I'm going to cut, and I'm cutting this at sharper than a 45-degree angle, just to give myself more space. And now I should be able to flip this right side out. I'm gonna use my purple thing to help poke this through. Come here. And I want to get those bottom corners as crisp as possible without poking through that bottom stitch. There we go. And I can finger press this. I'll probably take it to the iron and give it a quick hit on the iron. And now I have this cute little tag that can stick out of my bag to say that it's me made. There's a lot of ways that you can use these little patches. I could also like fold over the edges and stitch it down. That'd be another way to use it. We'll be playing with these patches in different ways as I go through this panel, but this is what we're going to do with this one, is just make this little tag. I've gone ahead and cut 15-inch squares of the other pieces that I need. So this is going to be my back of my bag fabric. It's from the same line and has that same sewing machine. And then this fun quilt block fabric is going to be the inside of my bag. So this will be the lining fabric. I'm going to set the lining fabric aside for a second, and now I want to secure these pieces to my 15-inch my 15-inch squares of foam interfacing. Depending on where you buy your foam interfacing, it might be called the Buy Any Soft and Stable. Pellon also makes a brand, so there's several different kinds and brands of this foam interfacing. Get what you have at your quilt shop and use that. And I'm just going to spray baste these together with a little bit of spray baste. I'm using this Spray and Bond basting adhesive. You want to use this in a well ventilated area, and if you don't have a well ventilated area, or you're just not someone who wants to use or have spray baste around, you can put your fabric on top and do a basting stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edges. That's also an option. This is just so much faster, quick and easy, quick and dirty, really, right? To just put this on. And to baste just means to temporarily hold or secure. So this isn't permanent. We just want our edges together. And I definitely want to grab those edges. Done one. Go ahead and do the other real quick. Now, if you wanted to add quilting at this point, you totally could. I'm not going to add any quilting to mine. I'm just going to leave it as is. I think it'll be just fine. and I'm going to box my corners. I need to box the corners on the 2 outside pieces as well as the 2 lining pieces. So I'm using my box bag template here to box the corners, and I think I only want to do a 1.5 inch box on these. So we're going to do 1.5 inch. Cut in. Oh, come here. And because of the soft and stable on the back, it won't quite cut all the way through. So you can grab a pair of scissors real quick and cut that last little bit. If you push down on the ruler, you should be able to get a pretty good cut. Sometimes if I push down, I can get it all the way through. There we go. Oh, really close on that one. So I'm going to repeat that on the other backing piece, and then when I do the 2 lining pieces, I can cut both the lining pieces at the same time. This is a directional fabric, so I want to make sure that just like on here, I cut my corners off the bottom, that on my directional fabric, that I cut my corners off the bottom as well. We have all our pieces cut, and honestly, we are so far in making this bag. We're going to sew our box corners and then sew the bag together. It's going to come together so fast. So to sew our box corners, we're just going to fold this on the on the diagonal. So we've got that diagonal line. And now I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and sew. All of these are just being done with a regular 1/4 inch seam allowance. And just to be safe, I'm going to go back and forth at both ends of the seam just to hold it all together. So both at the raw edge side and the fold side. And that'll keep everything together really good. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. That's our box corner seam. Looks so good already. Okay, so now I just need to repeat that with all 8 corners. So I just did 1 corner. This is corner number 2. And then I have 2 corners on the bag back, and then 2 corners each on the bag lining. So that's going to be a total of 8 of these seams that I'm going to sew, locking my stitches, which is that going back and forth at each one of the ends and folds of these seams. Oh, long thread. There we go. And that's going to make the boxed corners for our bag. So let's keep going, stitch all these up. Okay, we have all 8 of our box corners sewn, and so now we're going to put our 2 lining pieces right sides together and our 2 outside pieces right sides together and sew along the sides and bottom. For this lining piece, we do want to leave a hole at the bottom of, maybe about 8 or 9 inches along the bottom. When I put these together, I like to take my corner seams and then just nest those corner seams and give them a pin. And if you are new to bag making, it is easier to do this with the lining than it is with that big outside that has the fusible fleece on there, or than it is with that big outside that has the soft and stable on there, that foam interfacing. So I've just pinned those 2 corners. You could pin the rest if you want. I don't usually have a need to, but if you're a beginner, you may want to add more pins. For these big pieces, it's harder to get those to nest. So I might see if I can just get them to open instead. And get a pin through the layers to hold that in place, and then same with the other side. This side looks like it wants to nest easier, so we'll nest that one. No one's ever going to compare my 2 sides and say, you opened the seams on one and nested on the other. Sure, okay. All right, we're going to sew our lining first, and we're going to remember to put our hole in the bottom. And then before we go do our outside, we are going to add that tag, because we're going to remember to add our tag to this project. stopping to leave that hole down at the bottom, and then starting again about 8 or 9 inches after I stopped. Doesn't need to be perfect, and you can always unpick some stitches if you need, if you didn't leave yourself a big enough hole. Okay, those are my 2 lining pieces together. I want to add my tag, and I want my tag to show from the front. So this is the front of the bag, so I want it facing the front, and I think I want my tag a little bit up high. I think I want it up here. So I'm going to tuck it right there. And I'm going to pin it in place on each side so that it hopefully doesn't go crooked. I don't want a crooked tag. I'm going to line up these edges. And just sew all the way around. Okay, now it's time to add our straps. I just grabbed what I had on strapping, and this looks like it'll make 2 18-inch straps, which is perfect. I'm going to cut this in half. And then I'm going to pin it into my bag. When you take your strap, you just want to flip them so that the top edge stays the top edge. You don't want any twists in your strap. So just boom. And then I have it here on my mat to say, okay, I want to go 3 inches in. Does that look good? Yes. So I want 3 inches, 3 inches. That's where I'm going to pin that. So let me put the bottom one on first. 3 inches, and then my strap. And I like to stick my strap out just a little bit further. And then pin and pin. And then same with the other side, 3 inches, and then my strap, and stick it out just a little bit further. That keeps it in place in case you have any shifting. Now I do have purse handle pins that also make this super easy, so you can watch my video on purse handle pins to use purse handle pins on this instead. We're going to go ahead and add the strap on the other side. Okay, there we go. I have my straps all in there. Now I'm going to take my lining, and we want them right sides together. So that means turning my lining right side out. So when I tuck it inside, they are right sides together. Tuck it in. And now I'm going to take my side seams on both my lining and my outside, put them right sides together, and give them a pin. Same with the other, lining up the lining and the outside seam allowances. Get that nice and straight and even. Give it a pin. And then depending on how much you like to pin your bags, you can add more or less pins. I want to add at least 1 pin right here. This also would have been a great bag for a magnetic snap at the top. I have a whole book on bag making that will also teach you how to put a magnetic snap in. So this would have been a great project for a magnetic snap. Okay, so now we're going to take this all the way around here on my Baby Lock Jubilant. And the easiest way to do that is to just pop this off. And now you have this like free arm situation so that you can tuck your bag right underneath. How handy is that? And you can start wherever you want, because we're just going all the way around, and we're going to stitch all the way around. Where I have these handles, I like to just add a little extra stitching just to secure it. And then making sure that my pins aren't getting caught on the bottom here. I'm going to shift and adjust everything back into place. There we go. On this side seam here, if I can, I want to try to press that open. There we go. Again, pull, make everything nice and flat. And again, on each of these handles, I'm just going to stitch back and forth. You don't ever want to stitch over your pins. Stitching over your pins could cause all kinds of damage to your machine, and we like our sewing machines. We do not want to damage them. So don't stitch over your pins. If you do, try to break that habit, because I know people who say, oh, I sew over my pins all the time and I've never had a problem. And that's true. You never have a problem until you do. And then when you do, yeah, it's not worth it. Okay, our bag is all put together. We do have 2 more seams, one to finish up the top and then one to sew the hole in the bottom closed. So, but now we get to see what our bag looks like. So I like to reach all the way into the bottom, grab it, and pull it all the way through. Bottom corners, other bottom corners. Remember the tag, it's sticking right there. It looks so cute. You can already see how cute this bag is looking, but we do need to pin the top. And I do use quite a few pins. I start here at the handles and pin this top. Anything we can do to get this to lay nice and clean. You could take this over to your iron as well and iron this to get a nice even top edge. So I'm doing it on both sides of the handles, doing it here at this side seam. And then I'll add some more pins along the middle as well, just to get this to lay as smooth and flat and tuck that lining in nice and pretty. And we're going to give this a stitch. Now you can choose if you want to stitch around and just do 1 row of stitching, or you can stitch around 2 times and give yourself 2 rows of stitching. That also looks really pretty. I'm going to do 2 pins between, like in the middle of the handle. This will be a lot of pins to take out. The more pins you put in, the more pins you take out as you go, and it means a little bit of kind of start and stop as you're taking out those pins, but worth it. Worth it to have a bag lining that sits nice and flat inside the bag where it belongs instead of tucking out. And I am just going to do 1 line of stitching around the top. I think that'll look simple and pretty and perfect for this bag, but I do take my stitch length and I bump it up by 2. So this is a 3.5 stitch length for around the top. I think that that longer stitch length just makes it look more like classy finished. So now we're going to do the same thing with this free arm situation. We just want to make sure that the handle is getting tucked underneath. And then I actually want to start kind of at the back of the bag. So I'm starting near the seam so that when I go all the way around and I stitch back over where I started, that it looks nice and clean, or at least hidden at the back. All right, so with my stitch length increased, moving that first pin out of the way already, press your foot down. And then I want to make sure that my handles are out and I'm not stitching my handles down on top of or inside the bag. That would be bad. I'm going to come in here and clip this thread so that doesn't get all tangled up in the back. Come back around and try to stitch right on top of where I already stitched, and then I am going to give it a back and forth. Now I should be able to just clip these threads. It's looking like a bag, right? And my handles are not twisted, which is always good. Okay, I just have to sew up the hole at the bottom and then it's done. So I am going to sew up the hole at the bottom, because if I don't do it now, I will end up with a holy bag for quite a while until I bring it back to a sewing machine at some point. So to close that hole in the bottom, you just take this bottom seam and close it up. Now you can pin this if you want. This one's wanting to fold on me a little bit. If it helps, you can take this to your iron and press this down. But for me, the hole at the bottom of the bag is never seen. So I sew by machine. I don't sew by hand anymore. I used to sew by hand. I don't sew by hand anymore. And I don't pin them either. I just line it up here at the machine. Oh, let's bring that stitch length back down to normal. We don't want a big stitch length on this hole on the bottom because we want it to be nice and secure, and our standard stitch length is going to keep that nice and secure. tuck the lining back in the bag. And there we go. Perfect little on-the-go sewing project tote. I love how this turned out. Friends, make sure that you comment below what you think about this, and if you're going to be making a bag like this as well. Give this video a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, I don't know what's stopping you. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel so you get all of my videos where I show you how to make projects, do different new and old techniques, and show you some of my favorite quilting notions. So make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you right here real soon. Bye for now.